It is Tuesday, and that means it is time for the bullpen. And the bullpen is where we talk about all things sales. We are building a $1 billion sales team, and this is my chance to share what we're learning, how we're doing things, how we're tweaking, how we're shifting to make sure that goal of a $1 billion sales team actually happens. And today, I'm walking you through cold calling. Now, cold calling is something I thought I was okay with, but we've learned a lot as we've built the team out and as we've scaled and as we've tried selling different offers. Because, at the end of the day, I think there's a huge myth, especially in the online advertising industry. And the myth is, hey, if you just run some ads and you just have a landing page and you have good copy, you can sell anything. Well, that is not true. You have to connect with people. And the best thing to do that with is this thing here called a phone. You have to pick up the phone and dial. So let me give you a couple of examples before we go into this. Number one, I run a large conference, huge conference, right? Number one myth, and this is, we do a lot of consulting with different events all over North America because they've seen what I do with my event and how we scale it. So they come to us asking for help. And almost everybody is running ads to a buy now page and they're not picking up the phone. You know how inefficient that is, right? You have to get on the phone with these prospects, have to walk them through the sales process to actually have them buy. You need to have a person involved. And even with our sponsorship team, we have to get prospects on the phone. This is where you do discovery. This is where you learn about them. You understand their challenges, their pain points, what they want to do. And now you're in the conversation. You can align what you do, your solution with their goals, and then you can make a sale. It doesn't happen unless you're actually talking with them. So you have to be able to call. You have to be able to get on the phone and connect voice to voice. So how do you actually do that? How do you cold call selectively or not selectively, successfully? How do you cold call successfully? There's 4 things I want to cover today that's going to help you a lot when it comes to cold calling. And even like way back in the day, this is a form of cold calling. A lot of people think, oh yeah, you got to pick up the phone to cold call. The very first business I ran was a student payment company, and I had to knock on a lot of doors. You start first thing in the morning, 9 a.m., and you go all the way all day until 8:30 because this was in the summertime. So we would door knock until like 8:30, 9 o'clock some nights, all day. You take like 15 minutes for lunch, you run into Horns to go pee, and then you go back out and do it again. That's cold calling, right? You're knocking, like you have no idea who's going to answer the door. You're just going knock, knock, knock. Now, the benefit for the way we do things now with our company, and we're hiring sales reps, right? So one of our big value props for our sales rep team is we generate a lot of inbound leads. So a lot of companies have the issue where they don't have enough leads, and I'm going to cover that in a sec with cold calling. Like they don't have enough lead volume. We have the opposite issue. We have too many leads, right? And this is why we're hiring so many guys, because we have to be able to service that lead volume, right? We have too many, but you have to be able to get on the phone with these people. So what do you do? Well, the very first thing you need is you need a list. You need a list. You need people to call. Now, with my example, right, we have a lot of inbound leads. We run ads. People opt in. They want more information. They send us their information. They're expecting a call. That's an inbound lead. Now, is that better than calling the phone book? Absolutely, it's warmer. You're going to have a higher percentage there of conversions than totally cold traffic, right? So that's the benefit of working with us, right? Because we have all inbound leads. We don't just randomly dial. But there are situations if you have no list, if you have nobody, you have no past customers, you have no avatar, right? You have to find somebody to call. So this is how you actually build a list. And this is what we do with our sponsorship team on our conference. Because when we first started, we had no list. We were a startup event, right? We were brand new. So we needed to figure out how we get in touch with people. So the way we do this is we create buckets. So I don't care if your business is a gym. I don't care if it's some consulting business. I don't care if it's a service, hairdressing, whatever it is. You need to create buckets of prospective customers, people who may be interested in your service. So let's say somebody is running a consultant operation for seven-figure businesses, right? Hey, this is what you do. You're a consultant. You work with seven-figure businesses and help them scale. Well, now you have to create buckets of different prospects, right? Because like not every prospect is going to be the same, and you have to be able to understand the nuances of the list you're calling. So let's come up with a couple different buckets, and I'm just making these up on the fly, right? So obviously, if you are a consultant doing working with seven-figure businesses, you want to pay a little bit more closer attention to the buckets than just making them up on the fly. But you're going to have people probably who are six-figure businesses who want to get to seven figures, right? Those are going to be some people that you could work with. Now you're going to have seven-figure businesses who need to hire more people. So hiring is a big issue. You're also going to have seven-figure businesses where maybe it's a product fit, like at scale, it's falling apart. So they need to work on their products. Maybe you have other seven-figure businesses, right, where they need their tech and their systems, right? Depending on the pain point of this type of list, and how do you create the list? Well, you can run ads to create a lead magnet, make your list that way. You can also scrape. So you can use services on LinkedIn, and you can build a list that way. Now, if you're going to do the LinkedIn, so this is one way you can build the list, right? You can do different pain points within the same umbrella. Or you can do it by industry, right? So if you have different buckets here, maybe you have seven-figure business owners in landscaping, right? So you're going to help scale seven-figure landscaping businesses. Maybe you can do a seven-figure business in coaching, right? Seven-figure coaches, seven-figure restaurants, right? Food service, right? You can do your lead buckets this way. Whichever way that makes sense for your business, it doesn't really matter. You just need to have different buckets. Why? Because now you can start tailoring your message. Once we get into number 3 and 4, you can start tailoring your message to exactly what somebody in that bucket needs, right? Because somebody who's running a seven-figure landscaping business, they're going to have seasonal issues come in. They need a lot of people. Then they're going to shrink down unless they start doing the snowplow in the wintertime. So they're going to have specific challenges, and you can address that, right? Versus a coaching business is going to be another pain point. And then food service, that's going to be another pain point. But if you understand, the more granular you can get with your scripting, your messaging for that audience, the more traction you're going to get. Because I call it throwing bullseyes, right? You want to hit bullseyes. Because if you just come up with a standard stock script that applies to any seven-figure business owner in this example, right, you're going to get 75% of the way there. You're going to be throwing darts and hitting right here, but you're not hitting a bullseye. What you need to do, specific sell. So the more specific you can get with your messaging and your value prop on the call, on your cold call, you're going to be getting way more conversions. You're hitting bullseyes every single time. So that's the goal here. Now with our team, just to use our personal example with our conference, we've got a sponsorship team. And we have many, many different buckets that we draw from for our sponsorship. So we run an entrepreneurship, investing type of conference. So we'll have different buckets for sponsors, right? So maybe we have a tech bucket because every entrepreneur, every investor needs more tech. They need platforms, portals, all that type of stuff. Then we may have a marketing services bucket because business owners need marketing help. So all the businesses here, we put them in here, right? Tech, we put them in here. Maybe we need HR staffing, right? We put everybody in here. And then maybe they need finance and capital. We put all the buckets here. So now when our team's dialing through, they know if they're hitting the finance bucket, everybody they're talking to is in the finance space. That makes it that makes it a lot easier to get in the zone rather than, you have no idea who you're going to get on the phone the next time. That's a really bad list because you can't be prepped. And a lot of this stuff with cold calling, it's all in your head. It's all a mental game. So the more you can get in a groove and you know what's coming up next, the better it is, right? So if you're just starting from scratch building your list, do the bucket system, because now you can be a lot more honed in. Plus, if you're calling a construction company or contractor, they're probably going to handle you on the phone differently than a finance company, because it's just a different feel in the industry. The construction guy, he's on site, he doesn't have time. Finance are probably calling an office and getting a gatekeeper. It's a different way of getting to the principal on the phone. So you have to expect that. And if you're just throwing everybody in the same bucket and just calling people haphazardly at random, it's not going to help your productivity, right? So you have to be able to itemize and bucket your leads, okay? So very first thing you do, I don't care how you're going to create your list. You can even buy a list, but I would prefer if you create it. So you'll run in some ads, a lead magnet. Maybe if you have an email list, you'll have some type of item of value to have people give you their phone number and consent to call, right? You can scrape things off LinkedIn if you're going B2B. So many different options to create your list. Once you've created your list or buckets at this point, now you need to know what to say. So you need a script. Why do you need a script? Well, there's a right way and a lot of wrong ways to run a cold call, right? If you're just picking up the phone and just saying random things and having a different conversation every single time, it's not trackable. You don't know why something is working. Why are you being successful, right? You can't track that. So the reason you need a script, number one, is going to keep you on track, because you want to go from the intro of the call into the reason of your call, into discovery, into, if you're actually pitching on the first call, if you're setting another call, whatever your process is, you need to be able to move them in a straight line all the way down. If you don't have a script, if you don't have a process, you're just pulling at random straws and your call's not going to be efficient. What happens then? Well, number one, you're not going to seem professional because you're always bumbling around for what to say. Number two, you're going to be wasting a lot more time than you have to on the phone because you don't know the most efficient way to get down through your phone call. With our team, when we're doing our outbound calls, we know exactly how much time discovery should take in a call, right? Hey, if you have more than 7 minutes of discovery, we know you're over time. So we have all these benchmarks on how long it should take you from the time to somebody picks up all the way getting into discovery. We have that figured out. Then how long should discovery take? How long should your pitch take? How long should it take you to book an appointment? We have those metrics because we followed the same script, the same process over and over and over again, and we've refined it. And what we do is we take our top performers, what they do, and then we make that the standard for the rest of the team. Because if the top performers are getting the best results, obviously they figured out how to work it to their advantage. And now the rest of the team can use those best practices so they can have the same type of success. That's why you need a script. So every single call, you're going to run it the exact same way. And you're going to say, oh, but Seth, everybody's different. Every business is unique. Well, yes and no. So the one thing we found when you're dealing with large volumes of people, because we generate a lot of leads, we get a lot of volume coming in, you're going to find most businesses in your area in that bucket have probably share three of the same problems, and it's always the same problem, right? With our Conference Accelerator offer, where we help other events scale, it's always the same problems people have, right? So if we're doing outbound calling, chances are it's going to be one of three issues. Right? You just have to figure out exactly what that is in your industry. And if you don't know, hop on the phone, do a cold call once we go through all four things. Get on the phone, and within 2 days, you're going to know exactly what the market needs because everybody's going to be sharing one of the same problems, right? One of the three. So you need a script. The other reason you need a script is improvement, right? So what happens is you're going to come up with a script, right? And there's so many different cold call scripts, but they all run basically the same way. You intro the call, you state your reason for the call, you hop into discovery, you do your set or you do your close, whatever it is, if you're running a 2-call process. That's what you're going to do. But now you have to refine your system and improve it, right? If you're just doing the same thing and not tracking anything, right? If you're just having these calls and not monitoring results, you don't know. But this is where it gets really cool. Now you can have sales rep A follow one script, one variation, and sales rep B is going to follow variation number 2. And you're going to have them do, let's say, 1,000 dials using each script. And so when we're using large enough numbers, everything's going to balance out. And maybe sales rep A is booking appointments. Maybe they booked let's call it 15 appointments. But maybe sales rep B, following the other script, maybe they booked 22 appointments. And as you do it at scale, you're going to find, oh, well, maybe this tweak with sales rep B, maybe this is actually onto something. So now you'll test again. And then if you repeat the same test and you get the same result with different reps following the same script variations, well, now sales rep B becomes your winner chicken dinner. And now you're going to find, now you're going to use script C variation, and now you're going to try and beat letter B. So you're always improving your script, but if you're not using a script, you have no idea what's working. So what you want to do is, once you get on the phone, you want to listen back to all of your sales calls, and the ones that are more successful, oh, well, I said it slightly differently this way on my most successful calls, so maybe I should just say it this way on all my calls. And if you get more improvement, great, keep at it, right? You have to test. But if it's not trackable, if you're not following the same process every single time, your cold call is going to fall apart, right? And cold call is all about the numbers, okay? And this kind of is a good segue into number 3. And number 3 is probably the most important thing. It's volume. You have to do volume in cold calling. So our guys, they do 100 to 130 dials per day. That's what it takes. Now, out of those calls, so with our reps, right, they're going to have 12 to 20 conversations a day. They're calling our list, right? We've got pretty decent lists. But if you're just calling, if your list isn't very strong, maybe you're getting 6 people a day to have a conversation with. It doesn't, you have to figure out what your numbers are. But these are our numbers, 12 to 20 conversations a day out of 100 to 130 dials. You have to do volume. And, after a couple years now, or three and a half years now of running our teams, this is what I found. Every single time a sales rep falls under 100 dials, it's a bad day. 100% it's a bad day. And as soon as the sales rep gets over 100 dials, maybe that day wasn't a great day, but now because they've started that ball rolling, they've built that snowball and rolled it down the hill, day 2, 3, 4, 5, they're set up for success. As there's always slow days in sales, but if you have that volume, you're setting that momentum up to carry you through. So I've never had a sales rep do 100 dials a day for, let's say, 5 days in a row and not have great results at the end of that, because volume is what matters in cold calling, right? And this is the thing, we were just talking about this morning, is now for whatever reason, if you're hitting the phones, you can't be soft. You have to be mentally tough. And the problem right now is a lot of people, especially younger guys coming into the sales profession, they're just mentally soft. They just can't handle it. And that's a huge problem, because sales, it's all in your head. It's 95% head game, 5% of what you're actually doing. So if you're wilting under pressure, if you can't take somebody hanging up on you or telling you to get lost, if you can't handle that in your head, you're not going to cut it in sales. You have to be mentally tough. So you have to be able, it's like any hockey player. If you can't go in the corners and get knocked around a little bit, you're not going to be an effective player. You have to be able to take your hits, right? So it's the same thing in sales. You have to be able to set yourself up to do the volume you need to be successful. So 10 calls a day doesn't cut it. 20 calls a day doesn't cut it. You have to do 100 calls a day. Now, on top of that, you're sending SMS. You're doing your text follow-ups. You're doing video follow-ups. So you have somebody on your list. You've been chasing them around. Pull out your phone, do a video, message them. Hey, John, Seth calling from XYZ company. Listen, I saw your thing on Instagram. It was awesome. Just want to say blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, whatever it takes. But get your face out there. You have to be creative with your follow-up too. But it takes volume. And, with us, we're generating a large amount of leads. At volume, everything, now you have system issues where systems break under the load. But if you're just starting out and you're starting out cold calling, you have to do the volume. Okay. So that's number 3. Now, the last thing for cold calling success is tech. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that do not let a lack of tech hold you back from actually picking up the phone. Because here's the thing. Going back to when I was running my painting business, right? You have leads coming in. We had like the flip phones on very basic plans where you had to call before 7 o'clock after 7 o'clock because it was free. But what you do is you just dial the number manually, you pick up the phone and you call them. Then the next person, you dial the phone manually, well, you pick it up, whatever. Everybody's seen movies from the 80s and sales guys. Well, like you just have to dial and then you call. And those guys were doing over 100 dials a day too. There's no excuse, but tech makes it easier. So what type of tech do you need to make your cold calling more efficient? Well, the very first thing I would say is you want to have a good dialer. Now, what does a dialer do? It's going to automate the dialing process for you to eliminate that time. Because let's say you're doing 130, 150 dials a day, like at scale, right? But you're able to eliminate 15 seconds of lag between each call. Over the week, over the month, over the year, that's going to add up to some pretty big numbers in productivity improvement, right? So whenever you're able to automate that, that's definitely a plus. But if you don't have a dialer, don't hold off cold calling just to make sure you get a dialer set up in 2 weeks. No, like start cold calling now. It doesn't matter. Get the reps in. Now with the dialer, the cool thing you can do is you can actually get multi-line dialers. What does this do? Well, this is going to improve your efficiency. So instead of just dialing one number at a time, this can actually dial 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 lines at a time. This is going to make you way more efficient because most of the time you're dialing, you're not going to get a pickup. But if you can dial 4 people at once and one of those 4 people pick up, well, now you're just way more efficient in your day. So you can actually improve your connection rate, your live conversation rate, which is what we call it, with the dialer, because now you're just doing more reps. So you can actually pound through a list of, let's say, 400 people making those 100 dials because you're calling 4 different lines at the same time. And that's how you can get these high connection rates, high conversation rates, because you're just being way more efficient with your dials because somebody's got to be available. That's another huge thing with the dialer. Also, with the dialer, you can start tracking. So one of the things we track is talk time. Well, actually here, let me just break down exactly what we track, okay? So we track dials, we track convos or connections, and with us, a conversation, our definition is, hey, you're actually going back and forth, you get into discovery, like you're actually talking with a real person. It's not somebody saying, hey, just call me back later, right? Then we're going to track offers or pitches. And then you're going to have either like sets if you're setting appointments with somebody, like whatever it is. But those are the main things we track. And then we also track talk time. Because here's the thing. You can tell a lot by talk time. If you have 2 reps doing the same amount of dials, the same amount of conversations, but one rep is maybe like an hour less on the phone than the other rep, well, they're probably skimping on their discovery process. They're flipping through too fast, and then that's going to hurt their close rate because now they're talking with people, they're not going into discovery enough, and they don't know if that person's a true prospect or not, right? That's one thing. Or it can go the other way. If one sales rep is way above your average in terms of talk time, well, they're not following the script. They're going off script. We actually had somebody last week going off script too much and getting into the weeds, talking about irrelevant stuff. So they're having nice conversations, right? But they're way lost in the process and they're just being very inefficient, right? So talk time can be a huge coaching tool because it tells you a lot about the way phone calls are going on the with your reps. It can tell you a lot. So that's what we track with our outbound cold calling team, okay? So when you're doing your outbound dials, you can't be soft. You have to expect rejection. If you can't handle the rejection, you probably shouldn't be in sales because sales is almost all rejection with little bits of success in between, and that's what keeps you going. And that's why sales reps, there's no better job out there other than being an entrepreneur. There's no better job out there than commission-based sales, right? Because if you're good, if you're that 5% who's really, really good at sales and who can operate at a high level, you're going to crush, because 95% of the population is not cut out for sales. And you are just going to dominate the space. And a couple of weeks ago, we were just talking about how you can just become a high producing sales rep. There was that stat, was it like 66% of Canadians are overweight or obese, right? If you're doing sales, you got to get your mind right. So hit the gym, just come down to normal standard for body weight, and you're already ahead of almost 3/4 of the population, right? You're going to feel better on the phone. You're going to have more energy. When people see you, they're going to perceive you differently because you're in shape, right? That's what it takes. So it's not hard to be in that top percentage of salespeople. You just have to do the things most people can't even bring themselves to do, because they can't be consistent. They don't have the discipline. They don't have the drive. They don't have the tenacity. They don't have the mental fortitude to actually do the reps. Same thing with cold calling. You have to do volume, $100 to $130 a day, right? After a month, how many people can maintain that volume without giving up, right? I'm going to tell you, 95% of people who start out will not be able to maintain that volume. It takes a special person, but the person who can maintain that volume over those 30 days, man, the world is their oyster at that point, because they have the reps, they've built that mental muscle there, and now they're just having conversation after conversation after conversation. So if you want to know how to succeed in cold calling, well, number one, you need to have your list. Create your buckets. Know who you're calling. Number two, you need to have your script. And you can even vary your script by the bucket you're calling, right? This is why we track this stuff. Then you need volume. Volume replaces a lot of stuff. You may not be the most talented person, but if you do the volume, volume will basically solve all issues that you have. And then you have tech. Tech's going to make you more efficient, but it's not going to do the job for you. Sending emails is not cold calling, right? We fool ourselves sometimes saying, oh, well, I'm just going to post right now on social media. That's not cold calling, right? You actually have to pick up the phone and dial. And then your social media is an extra, right? Sending an email is an extra, but you can't replace cold calling with just an email. It doesn't work that way. All right. So if you're doing the cold calling, follow that process. Make sure you have a good script. Get your lead buckets in order and do the volume. That's the only way to make this work. But cold calling works. It does. I know people who have built their entire business off of cold calling. We're just fortunate on our end because we have a lot of inbound lead flow, but a lot of businesses, they have to do a lot of outbound. So that's it for this bullpen. Pick up the phone after this, end the video, pick up the phone, make a couple cold calls, make some money. All right. I'll see you next.
For hiring as well?
Oh, yeah. So if you are a sales rep and you are looking to work in sales at a very high level. So if you're looking to come in, learn how to sell at a high level, maybe you're an account manager, account executive, maybe you're a BDR, SDR, you've hit the phones before, you're not starting from scratch, but now you want to take your game to a very high level and work warm inbound leads rather than totally cold leads, we're hiring good salespeople. So just go to careers.sethferguson.org, careers.sethferguson.org. Send us your resume. We want to talk with you. We are building our $1 billion sales team, and we are looking for good quality people who understand this stuff, who can do the volume, who are mentally hard, who can handle it, because most people aren't. So we're looking for those special few who can come in and make their impact felt. All right. So careers.sethferguson.org. With that being said, I will see you next Tuesday. This has been the Bullpen.